going on, friends? My name is Corge, and today we're jumping into our first upcoming MMO of the series, Throne and Liberty, and asking a few simple questions. What is Throne and Liberty? How does it set itself apart from other MMOs? What are some of the common concerns players have? How does the monetization work? And will it be worth playing on launch? Make sure to like, comment, subscribe for future content, and let's jump into it. So what is Throne and Liberty? Throne and Liberty is at the current moment a free-to-play multi-platform MMORPG with cross-play compatibility. It's currently boasting an always-changing environment with massive scale PvP, including large castle sieges with hundreds of players engaging in this intense combat. Now this sounds quite ambitious. If you play some of these larger scale MMOs over the years, you're most certainly familiar with mass server lag, horrendous FPS drops, and rolling disconnects, which make the idea of large-scale PvP almost unplayable. Luckily, we're able to see how the Korean servers are handling this large-scale PvP, and so far it looks quite promising. Just the other day, I saw a clip on YouTube from Canon covering a multi-guild war in Throne and Liberty, and it looked extremely polished. Now, maybe I've been conditioned over the time to just accept server instabilities, especially coming from a World of Warcraft background, but seeing this really gives me hope for the stability of these massive PvP events. Now, will the classes be balanced enough for PvP to even matter at this level? That's something that only time will tell when we get our hands on the game. But from the few posts I've seen about class balance, it's not in the best place. During a recent Throne and Liberty livestream, the developers went into this topic and showed some of the balance changes that they will be adding in an upcoming patch for Korea. Balancing out the stat weights a little more and adding additional abilities for reaching certain stat benchmarks should help even out the differences between each class and their overall performance. So we've talked a little about PvP. Now what about the bread and butter of MMOs? That juicy PvE that everybody wants, the big boss kills, the epic loot. How does that all fit in here? Well, the game was originally meant to be PvP focused, so why the shift? That question lies with the players of MMOs. For an MMO to be successful and retain a player base, it needs to have constant updates and content. If you're pitching a live service game in a world that is supposed to constantly change and evolve, it's tough for you to gain a grasp on relevancy with only PvP. Thank God the developers realized this in some of the most recent patches and have been working to correct this PvE drought. Since its inception, Throne and Liberty has added open-world PvE events, large-scale instance dungeons, world bosses, guild activities, a solo challenge tower climb event, and more character and account progression. All things necessary to keep growth and draw attention to an MMO. So how does Throne and Liberty set itself apart? For the most part, this does feel like another current-gen MMO. We have callbacks to many popular MMOs, such as a similar tab-target combat system to games like World of Warcraft, a top-down feel that isn't too far from Lost Ark, and a class system that revolves around weapon swapping to change abilities, not unlike Amazon's New World. That being said, this game isn't trying to reinvent the wheel. It takes what is already socially established in current MMOs and uses that as its framework. Some of the more interesting strengths Throne and Liberty brings are definitely its large-scale PvP and castle sieges. Yes, we've seen this implemented in games before, but few actually nail down the server stability and number of concurrent players needed to make these battles really feel alive. Not being layered or sharded to another server is a massive deal for the overall feel of a full and living world. When you're watching players mysteriously vanish from a fight, it can really take you out of the moment and make these supposedly epic battles extremely forgettable. One thing we will touch on more a little later is the autoplay system. Now, at the time of the video going out, it's been removed. And thank God. Basically, if you don't know, Throne and Liberty had an autoplay feature that would fully commandeer your character and play it for you. Now, I feel like I don't need to tell you why this is extremely bad for an MMO, but we'll go into a little bit of detail. 1. MMOs are supposed to feel like a real world. And yes, maybe you're surrounded every day by corporate drones that almost resemble bots, but when I turn on my PC to play an MMO, I'm not looking to see a bunch of auto players running around me. I want to be able to engage with the player base. I want to be able to set goals and objectives around the game. Number 2, the idea that a popular MMO won't have bots is a farce in 2024. Every new MMO that gains traction will bring with it people who want to bot and make a profit from it. With the implementation of autoplay, you're basically giving bots a free tool to take over the economy and server, which, as we see in other MMOs, completely ruins the immersion and overall enjoyment of the average player.
Botting and Season of Discovery. Oh my god. How do we know they're bots? They could just be classic players. I think they're bots. Yep, they're bots. Oh yeah, yep, I see. Yep. Oh, look at the names. The names are just like random letters. Oh yeah, this is a big bot situation. So, yeah, this is just what happens. I mean, I don't think it's really a surprise to anybody, but Season of Discovery is going to have a huge amount of bots.
Basically, autoplay bad, and the devs made the right choice to can that decision. What are the common concerns players have? At this point, we've touched on a few of the common issues players currently have with Throne and Liberty, but is there any red flags that are really jumping out at players? To put it bluntly, yes. Big time. There are three main issues I've seen a lot on the forums, and we're going to jump right into those. Number one, bots, and more bots. Currently in Korea, to even register to play the game, you need a valid email address and a Korean mobile phone number. The current two-factor authentication makes it harder for constant botting and creation of bot characters, but this is still not enough, and you can see how rampant the botting is on these Korean servers. Currently, players have utilized AFK macros and botting software to permanently grind their characters up. Throne and Liberty is an extremely competitive MMO, and competing for the top rank and highest gear is a crucial driving factor in one's progression. The gap between these two groups of players will constantly widen until it reaches a breaking point in which the average player won't get the same amount of satisfaction they once did. Comparing yourself to people in real life is not the best idea. But in MMOs, it's part of the game. You see someone with a more fleshed out character in endgame gear doing the hardest content, and it looks appealing. Now, if you know the only way to reach that goal is to cheat or use botting software or other game-breaking mechanics and possibly risking your account, well, maybe other games are starting to look a little better. Number two, combat. Now, things have changed a lot in the past couple months. When we first got our hands on the game, the combat was static and just overall not very interesting. Combat was slow, unappealing, and lacked a finish that most modern games have achieved. Not to mention basic abilities such as auto-attacking were unable to be casted while moving. The current iteration of the combat system feels a lot more akin to modern games, but still lacks that niche that sets them apart and gives Throne and Liberty that originality that certain games bring to the table. Hopefully, over time, all of the kinks are ironed out, and the player base can get a functioning combat system. But it's really up to the developers to listen to feedback they receive and make active changes to the game. Number three. Now, this was originally going to be just another complaint, but I think this deserves its own section in the video. Monetization. So how pay to win is Throne and Liberty really? Well, let's break down the three cash shops that are implemented in Throne and Liberty, and let's take a look at how predatory they really are. First, we have the Pass Shop. And as its name implies, it's pretty much a basic battle pass that you can purchase each month, and with gameplay, can unlock rewards. Now, there is a free battle pass, but you'll get significantly reduced rewards and fewer of them. Secondly, we have the Solent Shop, which sells various consumables and morphs. Morphs being this game's mount system, turning you into different creatures, somewhat like a druid would in a fantasy game. Solent is a basic currency you can obtain in the world by doing various content, such as dungeons, open world events, world bosses, and guild activities. Now, the final currency is Lucent, and this is where the real issue comes to light. Lucent can be purchased from the in-game shop at a rate of around 100 USD for 100,000 Lucent. Lucent is then used as a currency, not to buy specific items from the in-game shop, but it's used as a global currency for trade and the in-game auction house. Meaning every time you want to purchase anything off the auction house, you won't be using the in-game farmable currency like most Western MMOs do. You'll be buying a currency from NCSoft and using that instead. This way of thinking and manipulating your player base to use a core function of most MMOs, that being a way of global trading, is disgusting. The game is free to play, but placing something as large as global trade behind a forced paywall does not give me a lot of hope for this game's longevity. Now, at the time of recording this, there are ways to use the auction house features without spending any actual money. But that requires hours and hours of grinding to potentially get a rare item that you can sell on the global trade, and then using the Lucent you get from that to invest in other items. But none of that is a guarantee, and you'd be better off spending the money if you have it and not wasting hours and hours of your time. Finally, auction house trading is pivotal to the growth of an economy, and if the whole system is placed behind microtransactions, then it's going to leave an awful taste in the mouth of the average non-whaler. Now, I'm not the most versed in Eastern MMOs, but the ones I have played have many common features like this, locking some sort of main feature of the game behind a pay-to-win system, and though it may work in Korea and China, the Western market isn't at that stage yet, and I believe that the jarring nature of pay to win in this game might be one of the biggest downfalls of Throne and Liberty. Now let's jump into the developer's past and see who is NCSoft and what have they done over the years to actually earn our trust. NCSoft was founded in March 1997 and in September 1998 launched its first game by the title Lineage. Lineage was met with great success in Korea, becoming extremely popular for its time, followed up by Lineage 2, which made its mark as one of the most popular MMOs in South Korea, boasting a whopping 1.1 million players during the month of March 2007. NCSoft would go on to create the ever-popular Guild Wars franchise in 2005, as well as Guild Wars 2 coming out in August of 2012. The company would continue to create MMOs such as Blade and Soul and Wildstar in the coming years, but would not reach the success some of its previous titles. Currently, we are in 2024, and NCSoft has partnered with Amazon to release Throne and Liberty. If we look back at the successes and failures of NCSoft, they have a history spanning almost 30 years of MMOs and other game creation. They have a groundwork already laid out from almost 3 decades of making solid games, but it's up to the developers of Throne and Liberty to pull out all the accumulated knowledge in the right places and not throw it out the window at the first chance of monetization. So what do we think? Is Throne and Liberty going to rise above the pay-to-win naysayers, or is this game destined to follow a similar fate to that of Lost Ark and burn bright but crash hard and fast? Personally, I think they need to address the issues surrounding character progression, unfair monetization, poor gameplay mechanics being locked behind a paywall, and a fun and meaningful endgame. NCSoft has made welcome changes in the past months, listening to the player base and making cognizant changes to the core fundamentals of gameplay. This is good, but it's not enough if they want success in the West. They need to address these issues and fast. We might as well be playing a reskin Lost Ark with better PvP. Thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts on the upcoming release. Do you have hope for the Western release? Do you think they'll fix the monetization issues? Are you even going to play on launch? Finally, what other games would you like to see me cover? I want to thank everybody for watching until the end, and until next time, take care, friends.